So the date today is the 21st of the 3rd, 2023, allegedly. And this is an attempt at like a blog, I think that's what we're calling it.
Podcast.
A podcast.
Yeah.
So this first bit is very short. So it's calling it the Chronicles.
The Chronicles.
And so this would be chapter 1. So what is it that we're trying to achieve by coming onto the podcast?
So our intention is to bring everything that we have learned through our occult work, our witchcraft, our pagan journey that we've been on, our magic, all that stuff that we have learned and that we individually and together have gathered for many, many, many years, and then bringing it all together, smushing it all together, and then kind of breaking it down into bite-sized pieces because this stuff can be overwhelming. If you're looking at the big smushy bit all together, then you go, oh fucking hell, yeah. But our intention is to break these things down into chunks that you can easily digest, for want of a better word, and hopefully, will give you the tools to move through, what we are all experiencing at the moment with this shift in consciousness.
So I'm similar to that. So as we go through the different chapters, we are constantly talking about thought forms, constantly, and using various different tools in which to be able to extrapolate what it is. So what we want from those particular thought forms. So what I'd written down was, so it's teething out cohesive labels through random synchronistic fluidic thinking. So it's not easy to get a label from a particular thought form that we'll be discussing. And then the second bit that would add into that is it's not a finished thought form, so it would go into something. So the thought form will be a label, which we can use like a label on a jar. So that's how it's used. But that label or the contents of the jar is evolving as you listen to this. So we're passing it on to you. Then that thought form then will evolve into something that you see through your own unique thumbprint. So it's kind of like the passing on. So it kind of, I suppose for me, we're starting, like we're going, yes, let's do the Chronicles.
This has been coming for quite some time, and I'll be honest, I was like, no, I don't want to do it. I don't want to do it. Don't want to do it. Don't want to do it. And it's like, for the past 2 or 3 days, actually, I've been getting the message, just fucking do it. So we're doing it.
So, yeah, that's how I see what we're trying to achieve in this podcast. And we'll see what happens.
Yeah. Okay, so this is the Chronicles. That's the name we're going with at the moment. So this first episode, chapter, is around overwhelm versus being happy and content. So what do those things actually mean? Well, on different layers. So overwhelm, it can feel, because I was experiencing this yesterday around, funnily enough, because we're in this energy of the Ostara portal at the moment, the equinox, spring equinox portal energy, gateway. And so yesterday it felt very dark. It felt like I was being squeezed by some kind of what's the word I'm looking for? Big snake.
Oh,
Boa constrictor. And there was no, I had the biggest headache that I've had for a very long time. And it just, there was no way, there was no lights in this darkness. Yeah. Sounds all very dramatic, but when you're in that energy of overwhelm, it's like, is all you can see is that there is no way out, if that makes sense. It was the energy of one day. Although I know from my past experience, that energy sometimes could last for years. So that this energy has moved through quickly is good. That's a good sign that I am giving permission, I'm allowing that energy to move through quickly, whereas I used to hold it tight. So overwhelm can feel like it can manifest like panic attacks. It can manifest as what people call depression. It can manifest as confusion, a lack of clarity, foggy mind, not being able to make a choice or a decision, just feeling out of control, feeling lost. There are many different ways people describe the same thing, which is overwhelm, which is basically through your cup being overfull. People talk about that a lot. What does that mean even? Yeah. So what that means is
get a bigger cup.
Get a bigger cup. I like that. Get a bigger cup, Dave. So if you imagine, yeah, you have a cup with a hose on the bottom. So the cup's got a hole in the bottom of it, and there's a hose that comes out of the bottom of the cup, yeah? So if there's a kink in the hose, then as water moves into the cup, it's not going to be able to flow through the hose at its optimal speed. So the cup overfills and it all spills out all over the place. That's what the overwhelm, for me, that's what the overwhelm feels like, yeah? So you get rid of your kinks. Get rid of your kinks, Dave. How do you get rid of your kinks? Well, you learn not to.
The kinks.
Yeah, the kinks are very cool, actually. So that's all around. And meditation is amazing for that. Creativity is amazing for being able, learning how to hold your vessel open. So the message that I got last year is, no matter what happens, stay open. So that's allowing that energy, and we do actually do a bit of that in the meditation circle that we've been doing since July last year. So by holding your vessel open and not attaching, as this energy moves through us, and it is intense, don't underestimate how intense these energies are that are moving through us right now. Smurf, get away from the phone, mate. So, sometimes it is a challenge to hold your vessel open for these energies to move through. But if you keep doing it, and if you can do it when these energies are really intense, then, that's a step towards self-mastery, 100%. So, as you learn how to hold your vessel open for these energies to move through and not attach, so not label the energy as anything. Yeah, labels are incredibly powerful. Yeah. And we know that from the past. The biggest learning curve we've ever had was the past, well, I'll say 3 years. It actually ended quite quickly. If you could see that it ended quite quickly, the con. So as this energy moves through, don't put labels on it. Just hold it open. And if you have to lay down and hold it open, then do that. If you want to channel it, you can channel that into being creative. If you know how to do that, then do that. But if you just need to sit or lay down and just hold that open, and you can visualize it, you can do whatever you need to do, or sit in silence and just allow it to move through you and not pin lots of labels in it. Because as soon as you start pinning labels on it, then that energy will slow down and it will infiltrate into your physical being from, because this energy comes through it comes down. Divine source energy comes from the earth. That's a different thing altogether. But this energy we're experiencing at the moment, this is solar energy, for want of a better word, light codes coming in, that comes down through the upper chakras all the way down through your crown. Yeah. So as this comes down, and it doesn't actually move quickly. Again, this is another dream I had last year, where I saw the vessel. It was like a clear crystalline tube, for want of a better word, but it was big, yeah. And the energy moved like water, but it didn't move quickly like water. It was like, I don't even know how to describe that. So when snow falls, yeah, when it's not a blizzard, yeah, it's not blizzard fast, but when snow falls, it moves, it's almost etheric how it moves, yeah. It's that kind of speed, so it's not really fast, it's not gushing through you, it's reasonably slow. So as it moves through your being, it's going to pick up, this energy is designed to pick up any stuck bits. It's a cleanse, yeah? It's cleansing. It's like a giant fucking pipe cleaner, yeah? And that's what it's doing. So if you start labelling it, what you're doing, think of it like Kaplunk. Do you all know Kaplunk, yeah? So these labels act as the little stick things that you put in the Kaplunk. So it stops the marbles falling through, yeah? Did you get me? So take all those sticks out, take the labels out that you're sticking on this energy, and just allow that energy to move through. That way, that's unkinking the hose at the bottom of your cup, coming out your bottom. So that energy can then move through without you attaching, labelling it as this, that or the other. And all those labels they're from institutions, yeah? You do not need to take those labels on from those institutions. Absolutely not. Because you are a being, cosmic, creator being of light. So you have no need no need whatsoever for those labels. They do not serve you because they are completely irrelevant. Yeah? So when you can sit... Sorry, were you going to say
No, I was
something?
just going to say, now they are.
I was on one then.
They are the thought forms, spells, spoken or written, that are overwhelming your cup.
Absolutely. Yeah. Because that overwhelm as well comes from the feeling that you need to do something about a situation. It's trying to speed you up. Yeah. It's trying to get you to plug into one of their thought forms. So whether it's, I must pay this bill, or whether it's, I must go to the doctor because I've got a pain in my body, or if it's, I don't know what other ones are there. I don't know. There are many.
I'm a bad person.
Yeah, I'm a terrible person because such and such a situation has happened.
Or I'm not doing my job properly.
Yeah, or I can't be a being of light because, well, that's what do they call it? A bit woo woo.
Or someone's not telling you how to do that.
Yeah, absolutely. Because there is no handbook for this. There is no handbook. Because, I mean, that would be an external thing. And this is all about your inner work. The inner work, the great work, which is what we guide people through. You know, and how to reconnect, how to remember everything that you are. Everything. So that's the bit about overwhelm versus being happy and content. So what is happy and content? That's a being at peace with your internal world, which is then reflected in your external world. And knowing the difference between what is the reflection of your internal world out there and also what is the societal matrix. Yeah, there's a difference. So it's determining what is your creation, the reflection that's coming back to you that you've created, and the one that is not of your creation, but that is, because everyone, if you look at it, everyone's doing that. Everyone has that mirror. It's just whether they recognise it or not. So is that other people's stuff? Are you picking up on other people's energies and mirrors, or are you looking at your own mirror? Yeah. So, for example, you can be quite happy and content walking in a forest, or you can be quite happy and content being creative, or playing with your kids, or, I don't know, petting your dog or your cat, and then something, boom, comes in, yeah, that tries to shake your peace. So it's a breach of the peace. Yeah, let's use a term that you all understand. It's breaching your peace. Yeah. So if it's something like you're walking in nature and you see them, and we've experienced this, like felling a whole forest. Yeah. Now, is that your reflection? Or is that the societal matrix, doing its kind of weird Ningbu things, yeah?
But what it can do is if you take on that thought form,
yeah,
it can overwhelm your cup, and that's quite natural to do that because you're nature, so you obviously empathise with woods.
Yeah.
Any destruction in nature, whether it's natural or man-made. So you get a feeling of being overwhelmed. So what you, for your happiness and contentment, what do you have to put in place? And that is a spiritual path. And that spiritual path is through a perception, and that perception is one of something that fits around you as what you truly are. So if you are a being of light and you're connected to everything that ever was, is and will be through love consciousness, then you can let that go. So unless it's in front of you, like if you're being attacked or if a friend of yours is being threatened, then there is something you can physically do about that.
Yeah.
To some degree. But when it's a more bigger thing, so if it is they're cutting down a woodland to build houses on it, yeah, you can go and protest in front of that. You can disagree with it, but ultimately, you're aiming to not be overwhelmed by this particular thought form that is manifesting. So it's not really in the doing, it's more in the inner self where you know what you're aligned with.
Yeah.
And for me, that's the love consciousness. So that it's a long game, if you like. What is the outcome of that? So we were talking about this a few days ago, where we were saying so one of our bugbears is like constant house building. And in that constant house building, where does that end? Because they keep cutting down, they keep building on bits of green land.
Yeah. Tiny little bits as well sometimes. It's crazy.
Changing the names of bits of green land to grey land or not grey land, brown land.
Yeah. Grey land.
And we were talking about that, and we sort of agreed that there's a point where those people will have to stop, and they will just say, "Oh, we've got no more land to build on." So if that comes to fruition, then it would have to start to backtrack on that. So it would have to start saying, "Oh, we need to take these buildings down." And we do see a bit of a thumbprint of that, where they call it rewilding. So I'm not sure quite what that is and what that perception is from the people that are perpetrating that. But essentially, it does give you a bit of a thumbprint that if you're saying, on the one hand, we want to rewild, but then on the other hand, you're building on lots of different important pieces of land.
It's like, so where we walk on the marshes, they've put in, they've planted these really strange things that you see, like little twigs of hedgerow surrounded by plastic, which is really bizarre. So they planted this big hedgerow around this playing field, but then literally yards away, they're cutting back hedgerow. It's like there's a complete dissonance there. That is a complete oxymoron.
Yeah, so the analogy that we said, if you've got a small child and that child's, you say to that child, don't put your hands on the cooker because it's red hot and it will burn your hand. But the child then insists that it's going to do that. And you say that if you do that, it's going to burn your hand. So you turn away and the child then puts their hand on the hot bit. You don't want them to do that, but they learn by getting quite a shock from getting that having a burn on their hand. It's a horrible image, but they do learn from those sorts. Don't do that because this is going to happen, and they go and do it. and this is very much in a lot of these kind of more bigger things that we feel overwhelmed with, where we just have to let them do that, get burned, and then they will correct it. Which is that thumbprint of this rewilding thing. So it is there. It's like it's very distorted in the sense of you know, wildlife corridors, rewilding. But there's also the other side of it, which is overbuilding, very poor housing, which doesn't think about the environment whatsoever, or the other beings that live on the planet and so on. Communities, how we shop, how we produce our food, and so on and so on.
Oh, I heard a thing this morning. Where is it? A guy said they're building. Oh, I can't remember. But I was talking to someone this morning, and he said they're building these crazy amounts of flats with no parking spaces.
Oh, right, okay.
So they are. And he actually said, he was a bit of a ningboo. He actually said, how long's that going to last? That's not going to last long, is it? You can't make people not have a car. Absolutely. Because, people have become reliant on vehicles.
And, once again, that is the child or a person who says, I can put my hand in fire. And you say, well, don't do that, it's going to burn you. I go, no, it won't. So they put their hand in fire and then it burns them, unless they have a very strong mind, like a Shaolin monk or something like that. 9 times out of 10, it's generally going to burn them. So that's kind of what that is. So I suppose the overwhelm is really not our business. Unless you're in those positions where you can make a difference. Or you choose to make a difference. So if you want to go and protest, that's absolutely fine. Or if you want to go and get a job in planning and stuff like that, that's absolutely fine. But it will come to fruition. The spell will complete. The thought form will complete.
And the bubble will burst.
And then it will rotate back again. In a kind of a different way.
Because everything, and we see, if you look at the natural world, everything goes in cycles.
So, although that's not probably a lot of what people are thinking, because most people think in terms of their own lives in relation to overwhelm, but it does participate in that. So, other areas of overwhelm is it affects your physical body. It affects how you go through your day. So what is the theme of the day? It affects your whole well-being. To the extent where you're in like a fog.
In the mist, which is a liminal space.
Yeah.
It's a intense energy. It's very magical. But it's kind of a space where there's a transformation happening in that liminal space. So it's going from one thing into something else. There's a transmutation going on in a liminal space, but you can't necessarily always see it. You'll probably feel it more than you'll see it. That makes sense.
Yeah, so trying to encapsulate this whole feeling of overwhelm, which is quite difficult in this kind of format because there are so many different forms of what people are experiencing. But essentially, overwhelm is a more expanded state of 3D consciousness.
Yeah, it's in it. And that's the thing about love consciousness, is an expansive energy. So you'll know this if if you have been sitting in meditation, in stillness, you feel that expansive energy without question. And that's versus, so that's the happy and content energy versus the overwhelm, which is constrictive. It feels like a boa constrictor. So it's two. So that's how you would identify. Am I aligning with love consciousness and happy and content, or am I connecting to this overwhelm, which is the fear and pain consciousness, which is restrictive, very restrictive. So that's how you can identify which one you're aligning with. Does it feel expansive? And can you be in stillness and in silence to experience that? Or are you experiencing the overwhelm, that restrictive, constrictive energy?
So I think one of the kind of sort of esoteric ways of looking at it is that the overwhelm goes in a jar. You seal that, you contain it with the label, and what is on that label to contain that overwhelm. And there are many different. You can have as many labels as you put on that jar. So essentially, you're putting the overwhelm into a jar, so you're sealing it with what's on that label. So I'm going to put, let's say, I am feeling overwhelmed because I've put on weight. So you put it in the jar, and you seal that jar, and then you write your spells or labels on that jar. So it might be you then look at the 6 different things: mentally, physically, spiritually, emotionally, metaphysically, and abundantly. I think that's 6.
Mm-hmm.
And you put those labels on the jar. So how can you deal with this? I'm feeling a bit overweight. Well, I could do a bit more exercise. I could, and it isn't just exercise. It's what's right for you. So you have to find it's not going to be an overnight label, for want of it, but you find what's right for you.
Mm.
So whatever that is for you, your unique thumbprint of exercise for the physical body, is something you'll have to go and discover for yourself. So it could be walking, it could be martial arts, it could be yoga, it could
cycling,
be cycling,
boating.
It
could be anything.
Yeah, gardening.
Yeah.
But it's a baby step, so it's a step forward, and that's part of what that label is. It's an action. So we put that. So that will be physical, but these things all work in tandem. So that then affects the mental mind, because you're distracting it back to yourself, because you're then working on yourself physically. And the mind will go, well, I'm doing something in relation to why I'm feeling overwhelmed. Spiritually, whenever you raise the frequency, your natural frequency, through exercise, or doing something which inspires you, because even drawing is quite a physical exercise for the hands and stuff, and certainly for the mind, or writing, or singing, or
creativity.
Yeah, creativity, acting, dance. The inspiration, because it's an energy, so it affects the mind in a kind of a putting that lid on the jar, so you're containing that overwhelm. So a lot of people always say, I'm really looking forward to doing that, whatever it might be. And what you're essentially saying is, I'm feeling overwhelmed and I want to put a lid on this particular jar. And that lid is in the action of doing something which then gives you that path back to your natural frequency. So that could be meditation, for example, which would link to the spiritual side, your spirituality, your emotional side, and also if you do a lot of it as well. So I do a lot of meditation, or I do a lot of running, or I do a lot of singing. That's abundance. So you're creating abundance in evolving this lid that you're putting on your jar with the labels that you're putting on the outside of your jar. But they all work in tandem. Those 6 different things work in tandem. So if you work, so another example that we're doing at the moment is that we're creating a space with crystal bowls in which to be able to support people coming back to their natural frequency, which is 432. And that focus is putting the lid on the jar of feeling overwhelmed, because we're focused on that and not anything else. Because we think that's important. We aesthetically, they're quite beautiful. The frequency that they make is quite beautiful and quite nice to play. And when people experience these crystal singing bowls, it gives them a sense of change for the positive, or like almost a respite.
Happy and content.
Happy and content. In relation to these crystal bowls, but it doesn't have to be crystal. It can just be your garden. It could just it's the Shangri-La. It's the place where you go to then extrapolate a healthy mind, a healthy body, a healthy sense of well-being or spirituality, a healthy sense of emotions, emotional intelligence. Metaphysically, you are bringing things in that you, once you go down that road, things start to move into your magical fields, which you couldn't have expected. You know, oh, I'm so glad I did this because this came into my life. And that's a metaphysics. And then abundantly, if you're doing it a lot, then you'll get more abundance that attaches to these various different things that are improving your well-being, which then extrapolates. I'm happy and content. So when you get to the end of the day and you're in bed and you're kind of ticking the boxes, how am I feeling? You always did feel like that. So it was always a distraction that made you feel overwhelmed, and it would probably be quite a negative distraction, which then doesn't give you any labels because it's very constricted, as Angie was saying earlier. You have to think this way, you have to do it this way.
And all those are programs, thought forms that play out, that you loop in. That was kind of what I was experiencing. I was looping in that energy yesterday. And when you're in that loop, like a holding pattern, the tools that are in your toolbox, you have to pick those up at some point to. It's like an aeroplane that's dive bombing. It's like that's kind of nose diving. It's like, whoa, you got to pull up. And those tools that you have through being creative, they are the tools that will pull you up out of that loop. So that could even be talking about how you're feeling with someone. A booze talk, which is one that we're going to. I think that's one of the last ones that we're going to talk about in these chronicles. Or journaling it. It could be. What is that for you? I suppose that's one of the questions you need to ask yourself. What are some of the tools you can use to help manage all these things?
I mean, I have an analogy, which is if you look at yourself as you're going on your path through life, if you visualize yourself as a tight rope walker in the big top in the circus, and what are they called, acrobats, aren't they? Mm-hmm. And you're stepping on this very thin piece of rope. Most of the time they have nets underneath in case they make a mistake and they fall into the net. And it's always quite a big thing. The most talented of the acrobats does it without a net.
Yeah.
And it's like, and they do the drum. That put me off completely, that would. And then he walks the whole thing without a net. And that's kind of what you're doing in life. So your life's path is the rope. You are the person on the rope, and you have this great big balancing stick.
You have the tools, which is the balancing stick.
And with that this balancing stick is the balancing of the overwhelm. So it's like, oh, look at it go! Oh, and oh. It's kind of like a rudder. Mm. So it's constantly moving. It's constantly balancing you on your journey. Yeah. Now the tools are the nets underneath you, but you have to put those in place. If that acrobat goes out on the road and the crew below, we haven't put the nets up yet, but you have to hold it a bit over these going. You have to put them in place before, otherwise you're playing catch up. Mm. So if there is something that you can do, so I'm feeling overwhelmed, and I know if I do this, that helps with me feeling overwhelmed, or start looping in this thought form or in this reactive way. Mm. If you've got that net underneath you, so that could be anything. That could be listening to your favourite piece of classical music. It could be, well, that's for me, your favourite piece of music. It could be tuning forks.
It could be dancing around your living room.
Whatever it is for you, that'll be your net, and it will catch you. Mm. It will catch you. And I can give you an example of that, where you, where we've had recently energies of low frequency, which has made us feel overwhelmed. One of the encatchment we'd put in beforehand was this idea of fluidic thinking, where we're not reactive. So yes, we would talk, we're feeling overwhelmed, yes, so we were talking this through. But in the talking it out and talking it through, it doesn't have to be cohesive. It can just be, as I say, this would be, we do talk about this in our last chapter, but it'd be like a booze talk. So when you go into a pub, you have a little bit of drink, you start to relax, and you kind of sort of try to solve the problems of the world, which is a common thing with a lot of people that drink. And in doing that, it then brings in things which help on that journey to not feeling overwhelmed. So it starts to put the lid on the jar, so it's contained. And you move to the label, which is happy and content. So for us, things happened which were quite surprising. So one thing happened where it then led to another thing, and then it led to another thing, which then has, well, essentially given us a whole new kind of therapy in which to be able to not only heal ourselves.
That's the crystal singing bowls.
Yeah, not only heal ourselves, but also to work with other people in their journey, and they're kind of they're feeling of overwhelmed. But the end bit that I would say for me is these are always thought forms. These are always programs, whether good, bad, or indifferent. They are always spells, and when you align with those, then that's what you're going to get. You're going to get what you're aligning with. So if you align with, I'm feeling overwhelmed, you're casting a spell.
So the ripple, as that moves out and then comes back, it brings back more overwhelm. So the tools, your toolkit, what have you got in your toolkit that you can use to bring you back up, to ascend out of that loop? And one of those things that's really important at the moment is meditation and silence, that stillness. Because it's in that stillness, or in that pure creative moment when you are so immersed in your creativity that time stops. Time is irrelevant when you are in meditation, in that stillness, or if you are immersed in creativity. Time is irrelevant. And that's those two things are, well, very important, I would say, at the moment, compared to the craziness that is going on in the world at the moment. Yeah, are you going to align with the chaos and the craziness, or are you going to align with your own creativity and that stillness, that meditative silence, that expansive energy?
Yeah, and that's an oxymoron, because as Eckhart Tolle always talks about, you are only ever in this present moment.
Yeah.
So we always there's a piece in one of the cut-outs I did where there's a hippie that talks about now. There's only ever now. So in that nowness, we have that choice to say, I'm feeling overwhelmed or I'm not feeling overwhelmed. But we also have a middle choice, which is just
let it go.
Let it go. It should just be. But you do have to let it go to just be. And that's usually on with like breath work. But that's another net. You have to practice breath work to be able to let go on that breath. It's only a little bit of work, so it's only sort of 10 minutes work of how to do a 4-4.
4-4-8 breath,
4-4-8 breath.
Which we do in our meditations.
Yeah. And like anything, when you first start off, it's a little bit difficult, it's a little bit challenging, because you're building a net to catch you. But once you've done it for a period of time, it becomes natural. So, kind of, when you're in happy and content, there is no such thing as overwhelmed. Overwhelmed can only be there if it goes through your perception and how you perceive what life is, if you like. And if in your life there is such a thing as overwhelmed, the starting point or the baby steps is to play with that, is to say, well, what is it? So for me personally, it's a spell. For me personally, it's a program, it's a thought form. But for it to be a program or a spell or a thought form, I have to give it my sentience for it then to start to permeate my well-being. So the trick to it is to take your perception off that, which is very difficult as a thought form.
But intrinsically, we know you know how to do that, because if you are, I don't know, having a problem with a person, a place, or an experience, or a thing, you go, I just need to go and get some air. Yeah, which is a really odd thing to say because air's all around us. But what that involves is going outside, changing your perspective, your perception. So you might go for a walk around the block or something, or you just might sit outside and breathe, yeah? And then you come back and it's like you have a whole new perception.
Yeah, and that's essentially what the cover of this Chronicles is about, which is I am Magick, nota victim. And that goes with feeling overwhelmed. You become a victim. So you can't find any way forward in relation to the thing or the things that are overwhelming you. So if it's money, I haven't got enough money. If you don't have anything in your toolkit which then gives you the money to pay the bills, to buy the food, to pay for your rent, and so on and so on, then you will feel overwhelmed. Yeah. So the trick to it is alignment to that, and that alignment is to say, okay, if I align with love consciousness, which will bring back the energy of abundance, then that's a lot better than aligning with the conscious, or aligning with the thought form of I'm a victim and I have no answers in relation to where I'm going to find the next bit of money to pay for this bill, to pay for this food, to pay for... And it doesn't matter what you do, the more you'll always have that. You're always in the 3D matrix, in the societal matrix, you're always going to have this Groundhog Day of paying the bills, back round again, paying the bills, back round again. When you've paid the bills, then comes the bills. So it doesn't matter how much money that you earn, you're always going to be paying bills. So it's almost whatever end of the scale that you are, whether you're extremely poor or extremely rich, you're always going to have to pay the bills. So you pay the bills, then comes the bills. You pay the bills, then comes the bills. So it's a loop that you're caught up in. So the kind of way out of that is to realise that that's a very shallow way of thinking, and it clearly takes you to a more expanded way of thinking. So you pay the bills, then comes the bills. So if you put something in between that, so you pay the bills, but I change my perception of what that is. So it might be I pay the bills and I'm going to have a day trip to the seaside and stand in front of the sea and let the wind blow over me. Yeah. So or I'm going to get up today and I'm going to paint a beautiful painting, or I'm going to sing, or I'm going to listen to a fantastic play on YouTube, or I'm going to. So it kind of interrupts that.
Pattern interrupt. Yeah.
Yeah. And what you come to realise is that this loop that your perception sees that you're sort of caught in, you can slowly, here's baby steps, you can slowly start to let go of that. Yeah. So you then pass it over to love consciousness. So love consciousness then deals with this loop, because no matter what happens, I'm always going to be provided for. That's the very nature of the universe. And that's the challenge for each individual person, to be able to trust that, because it isn't anything. It's not as solid as, oh well, I'll get a job because that's going to pay my bills, because all you're doing is buying into the same loop again. It's almost a relevant thing. It's like I know, like drinking water, for example. You know, we drink water; it nourishes our body. We don't think. Yeah, it's not an unnatural thing to do, and paying for your food and shelter, and
Or paying to live on the planet.
paying to live on the planet, you know, for your heating and how you travel about the place. That's all unnatural. The paying of it. What's natural is the doing of it. So, once you just pass that over to love consciousness, then you don't edit yourself. But it is baby steps, just to see where that goes. And so it's like you're giving yourself permission. So that will be another net that will catch you. I give myself permission to...
Because you can choose what you allow and what you don't allow. You have. That is your superpower. Your power to choose. That is your superpower. So you can choose what you allow, what you give permission to, and you can also choose what you say no to, what you do not allow. That's your power. That's your superpower.
So I think if we wrap this chapter up,
Yep.
and just do a quick overview.
So it's always a choice between the restrictive fear and pain energy of overwhelm and the expansive love consciousness energy of being, allow yourself to be happy and content. And if there's something that, you're not happy and content about, then you can make choices that are in alignment with love consciousness to bring about
And support.
or to change that. You have that power to choose. It's just we are not taught this in any of the institutions, which is why remembering this and realigning yourself to this it's a challenge. It's the biggest challenge that we've ever had as a race of cosmic creator beings of light.
And then, just to add into that a little bit there, Ange, we can play with that, and we can do the opposite of that. This is easy. This is the easiest thing that we're ever going to do. We can play with that. We don't have to go in this kind of rigid thinking.
Yeah, fluidic thinking. Yeah, and putting things in as layers that you can take out, or you can call it filters. which you can, discard or just put on the shelf, bring it back in. No, it's like bits of a puzzle. Yeah, so when you're making a puzzle, some bits will fit at certain points and other bits won't, but you can bring them in when they do fit, or you can not use them at all. So this is the end of the first chapter of the Chronicles. You know what to do if you love this. This will be found on all the platforms that we're on. It'll also be on Substack in written form. I'm not sure if I can upload audio to Substack, but if I can, I'll upload the audio or the video or whatever. So it's YouTube, Soundcloud, Substack, Instagram, probably Facebook as well. I might even post it up on our website, on our blog.
So, one of the things about...
and share it, obviously.
One of the things about what we're talking about, something in the words that we're saying, the spells that we're saying, the thought forms that we're creating, there'll be bits and pieces that resonate with you, which will be your unique thumbprint, and it will stimulate something in you that then evolves this talk about overwhelm for you personally. And that's what we were talking about earlier, about that as you take a baby step forward or a step forward,
it unfolds another bit.
It unfolds another bit. So although we're finishing on this particular chapter, that then opens other chapters for other people, but also for ourselves. And we will come back with, we will put editor's notes in if anything comes up in relation to overwhelm.
Yeah. Or being happy and content.
Or being happy and content.
So for now, just going to say stay fearless, and we look forward to the next episode. Thank you for listening, watching, reading. Okay.
So editor's notes, overwhelm and dealing with it through negative behaviours, so alcohol, drugs, implosive behaviours.
Obsessive, yeah.
Yeah. These are all forms of self-medication.
And self-sabotage.
And we can choose better ways of doing that. So rather than reaching for alcohol or reaching for drugs, which they do that. They do initially detach you, but then they attach you into another negative thought form.
Yeah, it's like a loop within a loop. So
a loop.
Instead of reaching for the negative loop tool, if you're reaching for something, reach for a crystal, for example. Just an example. I say crystals because we love crystals, and that that's part of what we do. We source and sell crystals. So that's just one thing that you could reach. If you're literally, physically reaching for something, reach for a crystal.
And modern medicine feels these addictions through pharmaceuticals, and some, they can be highly addictive, and they have a lot of
side effects.
And one of the things that's always missing from a lot of this kind of pharmaceutical idea, structure, thought form, is the absence of any form of spirituality or spiritual practice in relation to what it is you're overwhelmed with. So usually it's like some form of thought form which is fear. So if you extrapolate it to its end, it's always the fear of...
the ultimate fear is death.
Yeah, death, homelessness, 'cause
Yeah. Well, which is basically, you know, the underlining thing of all fear is the death of the human.
the avatar.
Yeah.
So spiritual practice is missing from modern medicine, and that's a big thumbprint. So yeah, that's just the editor's notes. We're not going to go too much into it, but do recognise that obviously we can't talk about literally everything.
Yeah.
In relation, we can only do sort of an overview.
Yeah. Because this is always
A conversation. A dialogue,
your personal journey, your personal path, and no one can walk that for you. You know, we walk alongside. You know, we might guide, but ultimately, you have to walk it yourself. You know, you walk it with other people, but you have to walk it yourself. There's no shortcuts. There's no hacks for that. I'm sorry. Yep. Cool. Stay fearless.